personally, I was disgusted to see how the president and the ANC was fueling it, to be like, oh my gosh. I'm like, President Ramaphosa, there's so many things you should be aggrieved by in South Africa. Kids are dying, we're being raped. Kids are, Babasakati 30%. Bladen Zimande is eating, chowing student funds, and he's escaping scot-free. You have your own palapala. The whole country is up in arms trying to understand what's going on. You protected President Jacob Zuma's fire pool, protected a whole lot of corruption scandals in this country. You have tenders that go unmet, that are awarded to wrong people, and even if the work is done, it's of a poor quality. Audit outcomes that point exactly to a failed state. You have Helen Zille. Controversial as Zille is, you had her fighting to get justice for Biko's name. People would argue to say, but why then do you have so many white people in your leadership? I would argue, and I'll boldly say this, right? Nobody who has left has pointed out to say, yeah, Ntabi Singh did this and this and this and this, and said this and this and this and this to these people versus those people. And on the basis of premise A and B, we conclude that X number of people within the DA are racist, therefore, because they are X over the equivalent of the other, the whole organization is racist. Nobody has done that.
Good morning, Mzansi, and welcome to the Social Justice Lab, where it may seem like it's about a lot of things, but we guarantee you, it's just society. We're joined in studio by the woman, the myth, the legend, Karabo of the DA. We've been waiting for this for a very long time, and she knows we have our own conversations about how anticipated this interview has been. So I'd just like to start by, please tell us about your history in politics, how your interest took shape, and where does the DA come into the picture?
So thank you once for having me here finally making it happen. Hopefully after today, I'll no longer be a myth, but I'll be a real person. And hi to your viewers and everybody who's tuning in. That's super cool. Thank you for doing so. My name is Karabo Khakhau. I am a girl from Welkom, Thabo Jerusalem Apaka here in the Free State. I went to Welkom. There I used to debate and was very critical about status quo then, as I am about status quo now. And from there, I went to go study at the University of Cape Town. Going to UCT, I wanted to become a chartered accountant. I had zero idea about anything that had to do with politics that involved me per se, apart from just my voter participation. I didn't think that I would want to actively serve in politics. I just wanted to crunch numbers and live a peaceful life. But then I got to UCT and life changed. There were a whole lot of conversations around discourse that not only encompassed the decolonization of not only education, but everything else in the country and the diaspora. But there were a whole lot of other conversations around what it meant to broaden access for all classes to education, higher education, that is, the quality thereof, what that curriculum looked like, and a whole lot of chats around that. And I found myself in those things, right? And so I got there. Accounting didn't happen, humanities happened, social science happened. And so as that happened, I then stumbled on the DA's student organization, which there I formed part of the leadership of the branch, ending up leading the provincial structure as well. I ran for the SRC, became SRC president with the highest votes in the institution, which was super cool for me because I was like a little girl from Welkom, Jerusalem. Who is our president there, UCT, Africa's leading academic institution? What is that? But it was super cool for me, and I think it is, as much as it came with a whole lot of affirmation for girls like me from where I came from, it also came with a great deal of humility to show, when God and your ancestors decide to place you somewhere, it will happen, irrespective. So that's how that happened. So having left high school critical of status quo, anti it, I took it upon myself to obviously engage different political party value systems, their mission statements as well, and as in some sort of my seeking of which one would align best with me. And then obviously I realized, hold on, no, the Democratic Alliance is liberal enough for me to find expression as a black child, not just as a human being. So I can still identify the core understanding of democracy, one. The core understanding, lives of a politician. Yeah, 6 days out of an election.
Be how it be.
It is, it's wild. So in trying to not only safeguard democracy, but in also trying to practically deliver that which is necessary to people in forms of basic services, but doing so without chowing state funds, right? With making sure that we have accountability systems that matter, and having policy positions that aren't just airy-fairy cute things that are cute to listen to, but can practically change and develop the lives of everybody across all classes, right? So that's how I ended up finding myself in politics and finding expression within the Democratic Alliance. And then after university, I became an MPL. So I matriculated 2015, 2016 went to go study first year UCT, 2019 became an MPL here in the Free State Legislature. There I served in the portfolio committee, they call it infrastructure development. There are three departments account to that committee, being the Human Settlements Department, Public Works and Infrastructure, and Roads and Transport. And I was the DA's spokesperson for both infrastructure, Public Works and Infrastructure, and Roads and Transport. Then November 2022, there was a vacancy in the National Assembly, and then the party undertook a strategic swap where I then got sworn in as a member of the National Assembly, which is where I sit right now. There I sit in the portfolio committee, higher education, science and innovation. It's very, very, very exciting to be talking to Blade Nzimande all the time about everything he does not care about as far as students are concerned. So there currently I'm still the DA's Deputy Shadow Minister for Higher Education, Science and Innovation. I am a candidate going back to Parliament, and we'll see what, after this elections, what the leadership wants me to do.
Oh, that's very impressive. I'm sure anyone listening would agree with that. Now, I want to ask you. You talked about the DA being the party that you saw aligned with your vision as a black child. You made that point, and I think that's a good caveat into the next. That's a good transition point into the next question. Do you feel at home in the DA, and more importantly, is the DA pro-black?
Yeah, I love that. So I was very specific about that word choice, yes, saying that the DA is a black child, because I do feel at home. And the reason why I feel at home is because I don't imagine living in a world where I am just exclusively existing amongst black people, and black people with homogenous ways of viewing things, of doing things, right? Because you could never be. I imagine living myself in a world with different people who come from different walks of life, with different backgrounds, different ways of thinking, different skill sets, and I think all of that is what makes the Democratic Alliance what it is, right? The ability to not only have a conversation to Karabo wa Jerusalem, but still be able to have a conversation with Johan wa Hielsig, right? And know that the interests that Johan and Karabo are the same, in the sense that they want to live within a country where both their rights are protected, where the government of the day's interests are centered on not only their safety, but their development and those of their children, in making sure that they all have an opportunity to put food on the table. Because that's all we want, right? We want to be able to put food on the table, not only for ourselves, but for our families. We want to have clothes on our backs. We want to wake up in the morning, at any time of the day, actually open a tap and you have water. We all want to make sure that when we do have cars and we drive around the streets, we're not bumping into potholes and having to repair our tires every 5th second there is, right? We want to make sure that in the middle of the night, if I have a sore tummy, God forbid, I can switch on the light and I don't have to first scramble for a candle before I get to toilet. You know, those are the things that are common around us. We all want to live in a world where you wake up, you open the window, the air smells fresh, and not like what Valkomo smells like, where there's every day, and it's not nice, you know. So these are all the things that that are common amongst South Africans, and that's why I find safety within the Democratic Alliance. We all want to go to school where we can all twang the same way. It shouldn't be that wana again skolo marama pofule wana getting welcome sound completely different. That the quality of education that they experience is different. The quality of teachers they're exposed to or that is availed to them is different, right? The curriculum should be the same, met with the same expertise and passion, and so should the opportunities that they are afforded to make it in life. And so I do. Is the DA pro-black? Absolutely. The reason why I say the Democratic Alliance is pro-black is because any political party that spends majority of its money when it is in government in poor areas that are predominantly residential areas for black people, is pro-black. And that is what the Democratic Alliance does. 75% of the city of Cape Town's budget is spent in your Gugulethu, in your Nyanga, in your Kraaifontein, and your Delft. And these are things that people don't talk about, right? Or maybe sometimes when we do talk about them, we're not articulate enough. Or sometimes because there's a whole lot of propaganda around the stereotypes of white people given South Africa's history, which a fear which is valid, right? Because it is a brutal history. It seems somewhat like a dream and not too true. And that's where perhaps the media needs to come in and be able to sift through propaganda and be able to pull out the truth in such respects. Any political party that says it doesn't want BEE in its current form, but instead of using race as a metric, but wants to use a disadvantage as a metric, is pro-black. Because majority of the people in South Africa who are disadvantaged are black. So if we are saying, broaden the scope of access and benefit, use the criteria that says disadvantage instead of black, then it means I'm not going to then have a situation where Karabo, who's privileged, gets to benefit each and every time and time and again, just on the basis of her blackness. But then we have Karabo le Nthabiseng le Lerato le Palesa, who have different classes, who are from different classes, who have different needs and different impoverishments, right? So you broaden the scope to say, but Karabo, you're black, sure, but you don't need us. Nthabiseng le Palesa do. So they get to help. And so that's how we broaden access and development for black people and disadvantaged people in South Africa. And so that's why I'm saying the Democratic Alliance is pro-black. And it is unfortunate that we do have the sad history of black leaders who have left in the Democratic Alliance, right? And not often do we go out and set the record straight around the truth around why they leave, right? Nobody wants to really have a chat about how dramatic and weird they were within the party in some instances, where some lost congresses or their terms of offices were over and they can't coexist with other people unless they are at the helm of the leadership, and so they leave, where they do not have the stamina to withstand the roughness of politics itself, which is not racial itself. Even in the ANC, where everybody's black, they will tell you it's a shitstorm there, right? Because that's what politics is. Politics is a rough game, and you need to be able to hustle and tussle. And as James South, may his soul rest in peace, would say, you would have to take a spoonful of cement and toughen the fuck up, right? And not everybody has the stamina for that. And so because we are, unfortunately, the only party in South Africa that is diverse enough to find yourself in a situation where a political fight would exist between a black girl and a black boy and a white boy, it automatically seems as a racism quest, but actually it isn't. It's a fight. You don't call it the same when it's a black on black girl. When it's a white on white, it's not racist. When it's a boy on boy, it's not a patriarchal quest. It's not a feminism quest when it's a girl on girl thing. But we're quick to judge it a racism thing when it's a black girl versus a white man without having clear context of what it is. And that's the unfortunate part that we still need to wrestle with as the Democratic Alliance. And we have that responsibility to show South Africans, right, to prove constantly to people that it's not like that. It really isn't.
So if I'm getting this right, and I'm just going to say, paraphrase what you said, and you'll tell me whether I'm right or wrong. Mm. You're saying the DA is pro-black based on the fact that it seeks out equitable the equitable solving of solutions based on the problem that is at hand rather than the race of the person.
Yeah. So, okay, let me make it clearer, right? So every nation that seeks to find a common ground of success across classes and across races has to be vested in the idea of equity and the aspiration of equality, right? And that is exactly where we are. To understand Hore, and it is seen in our higher education policy as well, where we say it can't be that Johan Rupert's grandchildren are granted the same access to funding opportunities within the public state's coffers, right, as Mwaname Mampo, who's a domestic worker. Because Johan Rupert's grandchildren don't need that, but Mampo's kids do, right? So that's why you would look at a higher education policy and see how tiered it is, that it marks you from 0 to 350 to 600, and then 600 and above, you're funded in accordance to that. So that's how you get to then judge the character of what it is that the party is all about. So the Democratic Alliance is, if the DA was not pro-black, right, and was anti-poor, then that funding policy matrix itself wouldn't exist, because we would look at Johan Rupert's grandchildren and Memampo's daughter and be like, you guys are all South Africans, you can all apply to get funding at the same time, you know? But that is not the case, because there's no logic there. There is no reason that backs up the idea of wanting to develop and wanting to give opportunities to people in line with their economic standpoints or the communities that they come from. And again, I want to stress this, right? People would want to easily argue to say, but why then do you have so many white people in your leadership? I would argue, and I'll boldly say this, right? If you can boldly say, come back with a receipt of black people who have contested white people, not just now recently with Lindiwe Mazibuko, with Mbali Ntuli and O.C. Mpho, the former mayor of Joburg, not just with them recently, but across provinces, across constituencies and every Congress that we've had. If you have a clear receipt of cases where black people have contested white people and we've lost, in a Congress where majority of the voting power is black, make it make sense, you know? Then you can come back and say, no, but there's a problem there. But that's not the case. So you do find people who are not contesting power, and not because they're not capable or they're scared, but because I now know really well. I think I have a good head on my shoulders. I think my heart is in the right place. And I think I would do well representing South Africans anywhere you put me. But if you were to put me next to, for example, a colleague of mine, George Michalakis, right? He's a white man, a Greek man. I know really well that George has a better understanding on a whole lot of other things than I do. It's not because I'm insecure of myself or gay nyaza, right? But I'm not now going to now rob South Africans from an opportunity of experiencing better leadership administratively from George just because I'm a black girl. Do you get it? That's not how it works. And those are the things that people need to bear in mind and be cognizant of when we judge the character of the Democratic Alliance and the politics of human relations within the Democratic Alliance, which we're not doing fairly.
So basically, like what you're, I think this was a long-winded way to say the fears of some people, you know, we'll say some people because we don't have the statistics in front of us, that the DA will usher us into a sort of neo-apartheid. Those are unfounded.
They are.
Fears.
They're not, I wouldn't say they're unfounded, because that would be harsh. Because remember, people respond from trauma, and it doesn't matter when the trauma happened. I can still get triggered at any point, right? So it's not incumbent on it. Nobody has the right to actually say, but your fear is unfounded. The bottom line is that we still now experience the consequences of apartheid and colonialism in South Africa, right? So anybody can be cautious of how they relate with former oppressors, which unfortunately in the case of South Africa were white people. And we still have white people today who do much better for this country than some black people, but by virtue of them being white, they're labeled oppressors, right? So that's not unfounded. So they're there. But it is impossible for us to ever go back to a new apartheid. One, the South African Constitution gives the people way too much power for us to even begin to fantasize about weird things such as such cruelty, South Africans won't have it. We wouldn't even begin to imagine to do that because our policy points, our policy documents, our values, our value systems, as well as our mission and our vision documents, they point clearly to us not being interested in doing all of those things. A party that is pro-opportunities for all people, that is pro-diversity, that is pro-freedom for all, that is pro-fairness for all, cannot absolutely under any circumstance be interested in having an apartheid 2.0. There's no such. It's not possible at all. Even the Democratic Alliance's constitution itself does not allow people to be weirdly insensitive or as racist as some would like to imagine. We even have a clause within the party where every public representative, or even when you're with your membership alone, you have a racism disclosure there to say, I declare, to say, I am a good person. When I see Kananelo, I see Karabo, and I see Yuan, and I see Dulandi, I see human beings who don't have superiority over the other, right? So, and we have checks and balances of such cases. And that's what breaks my heart because nobody who has left has pointed out to say, yeah, Ntabi Singh did this and this and this and this and said this and this and this and this to these people versus those people. And on the basis of premise A and B, we conclude that X number of people within the DA are racist. Therefore, because they are X over the equivalent of the other, the whole organization racist. Nobody has done that. So I'm like, because it's the same with you being abused. Because racism is abuse. If I'm being abused, ke tlo bolella hore ke tlo bolella hore ke thaba nkentseng eng ke thabang nkentseng so so why can't I be able to bold enough with my chest after I leave the DA when accusing it of being a racist party while months before was defending it being racist? Am I unable to call out and be frank to say, but yeah, Wena, you were the racist and this is why I'm saying so? Nobody's doing so. Why? Because nobody has anything to say that they can say with their chest, because everybody knows that narrative is the best catching frame of flame, for a lack of a better expression, against the Democratic Alliance that will be easy to get you not only public sympathy, but media attention. And it's sad. It's sad.
Okay, so it all comes down to political gamesmanship at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said something about narrative there, and I think that ties beautifully into the next point of what narrative the DA was hoping to convey with their election ad. This year.
Yeah. Look, this conversation still excites me, Dot Vandag, because I think we had taken for granted just how many of us have different understandings of expressions, linguistics, artistic, and all forms of expressions, which in this case, a metaphor is one, right? I was shocked to learn how many people actually don't get what a metaphor is in South Africa. And it was weird because anybody who critically engages the ad itself will be able to see that the Democratic Alliance is not holding a flag and burning a flag. The Democratic Alliance is giving you a metaphorical depiction of a burning nation. And there is no better way to depict a burning nation than the demonstration of that which represents the nation, which in this case is the flag, right? To say, if we're saying South Africa is burning, we are dying, guys, there's no turning back. Kuyasha. I'm not gonna show you people dying. Let me show you a representation of that. Could have used the protea, the coat of arms, the springbok. I am using the national flag to show you what this is it. And the message itself says to you, but we have an opportunity to restore the flag if we vote for the Democratic Alliance, to ensure that we get back to where we used to be, because South Africa used to be a beautiful country. Post-94, in the beginning of democracy, we had a beautiful, beautiful country. Years down the line, even the years when I was born 97, there, Amber 2000, we had a beautiful country. We had the best a generation of electricity systems there. Other people would copy them. We have the best constitution. We had the best actually systems of governance that still exist now that could just easily be used, right? So that's what we talk about the restoration, about voting in a political party that not only has the best interests of South Africans at heart, but voting a political party that has the know-how with a proven track record of getting things done in order to not only rescue the flag, rescue South Africa, and propel us to greater heights of development and success economically, education-wise, healthcare-wise, all the other wises that you can think of. And that's what the flag is about. And the flag was clear to say, listen, it doesn't help you just not vote for the ANC and that's it. Voting for ANC-aligned political parties such as the MK and such as the EFF is as good as voting for the ANC because they are in cahoots, they're in bed, they've been clear, so they will only burn our nation further. And that's what the flag was about. And I gave props to the thinking team and the brains behind that ad because it was smart. It was very critical. At first, I watched it, I remember I think it was a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon when it came out. I looked at it and I was like, yo, that's smart. Well done. Kudos, you guys. And I'm great. I'm happy for those South Africans also who have been able to critically engage as such, right, and see what it is. But I am worried about where we are as a country, how alarming and how alarmed we are, how alarming we are. South Africa has become an alarmist country. We see this on social media that we hop onto bandwagons without clear comprehension of them. We spew propaganda easier than we do true news and substantively engage in things that matter for the country. And I was disgusted to see how the president in the ANC was fueling it, to be like, oh my gosh. I'm like, President Ramaphosa, there's so many things you should be aggrieved by in South Africa. Kids are dying, we're being raped. Kids are, Babasakati 30% day. Blade Nzimande is chowing student funds, and he's escaping scot-free. You're protecting him. You have your own pala. The whole country is up in arms trying to understand what's going on. You protected President Jacob Zuma's fire pool, protected a whole lot of corruption scandals in this country. We have tenders that go unmet, that are awarded to wrong people, and even if the work is done, it's of a poor quality. The work does not last. The material that they used is poor. You have audit outcomes that point exactly to a failed state. And when you are aggrieved because of a metaphor instead of all those other things. Like, I don't know. No.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of your criticism of other political parties, I think is understandable. I think even if it were not as, negatively received by the public, they still would have found something to poke holes in it. But, just coming back to the ad itself, you said it was like a metaphor, right? So, admittedly, it was a cerebral ad. And the DA is sort of trying, are you guys not trying to appeal to the masses of South Africa? Or is it just a particular constituent who understands metaphors in films and cerebral?
No, guys, that is a very dangerous statement to make, right? Because you know why? Because it's bedded on the assumption that majority of the masses aren't critical thinkers. That majority of the masses do not know what a metaphor is. I mean, majority of South Africans went to school and our teachers taught us what metaphors are. I would assume we do know what metaphors are. I would assume even in our jokes, colloquially, we make metaphoric expressions. We make, what's the other one for a metaphor? I forgot it now, that term, I forgot it. But like it's a similar linguistic expression of making a comparison to something. For example, umabena. You are not mabena. Ukananel. But you're a mabena. I would say that, right? I'm not saying you're a mabena. I'm making an example. Yeah. But you understand? So we use that easily, casually in our interactions in society. And we do it well. And you don't need to be a doctor, whoever, with a cum laude thesis presentation to get it.
Yeah. So just like the ad was trying to convey a message, and perhaps it needed to be clarified more after the fact. You would admit that since there was such outrage about the ad, it kind of missed some of what it was trying to do, or do you stand by the ad right now, or would you admit that perhaps we missed the mark in terms of translating the message that we're trying to convey here?
It would be a difficult one to definitively say yes or no, because there is no study that has been conducted to show how many people got a comprehension, how many people didn't.
True.
All we have are X polls and the Twitter brigade, right? And that is not majority of South Africans. I mean, if the Twitter brigade, which I will call it Twitter because I'm still trying to wrap my head around the X vibes, right? But if the Twitter brigade was, or if the Twitter brigade held majority of South Africa's public sentiment, then the EFF would be government by now. They would have won every election, and they're not, right? So I wouldn't say we missed the mark. I got it, certainly I got it. A whole lot of people got it. You even have reporters and journalists who are not necessarily pro the DA, who don't like the DA much, who came out and were like, I know, but also Nilelan. What are you guys fighting for? Vele, you can't say South Africa is burning our nation, and then when the flag burns, you're like, oh my God, they are killing South Africa. We are in ashes. Like, no.
Yeah, no, I hear your point. Yeah. I'm hoping our audience will understand you as much as I do.
I hope you do, guys.
Yeah. So, like in terms of the equitable redistribution of resources and whatnot, I think one of the questions was, how will you guys balance the needs of certain people over others, being that the infrastructure is classically not built to the same standard? I think you touched on that a little bit when you were talking about the equity in general. Maybe if you want to touch on that a little bit, how you guys plan to balance the equitable distribution of resources in the face of the past inequities that are built into the infrastructure.
By equitable distribution of resources, let's be clear. Are we talking land, spatial planning, town planning?
Okay, we're talking about like communities, building communities. We're talking about communities.
So look, I'm going to give you an example again. I'll use the city of Cape Town as an example. There's not much development that needs to happen in Bantry Bay or in Camps Bay, right? Everybody there who buys a house there earns way more than what other South Africans usually earn, right? There are no potholes if they're filled because of the city of Cape Town's systems goal, culture of operation. Potholes are filled quickly. So there's not much that you need to do there, and quite a whole lot of establishments there are privately owned. But then you go to your Guguletu, you go to your Gryfontein, and you go to Kwalanga. There's a whole lot that needs to happen there as far as the building of houses is concerned, as far as not only building but maintaining existing infrastructure, right? So that's why we've already built their hospitals that work really, really well, right? I went to Khayelitsha now, I think it was, what month is it? It's May. I think it was either April or March. We conducted oversight at the Khayelitsha District Hospital there. It's a beautiful hospital, much more maintained than Bilnomi Libongani Velkome is, And so those are the things that you do. That is the Western Cape's budget that sought to build infrastructure that will benefit the community there, because they don't need a hospital. Gahara Camps Bay. And if there is a hospital that will be built there, it will be a private hospital in any case, because somebody else would want another cute thing, right? So that's what you see. You get there, we're working on our road networks there. They've been working really well. We've had over millions of infrastructure budget that goes strictly in working on our sewage networks and making sure that everybody has access. Now, the hot burning topic and problem is the housing conversation, right? Everybody knows. And for those who don't, the truth is, majority of all the shacks in our townships in Cape Town are built on water, on land that is not conducive for dwelling. There is no government or private sector feasibility study that will come back and say you can build a house here. That's why the city can't build there. Because you will build now, it will collapse now. And that's why every raining season we have floods there. Because why? Right? So the city of Cape Town has always said, okay, let's come up with integrated housing development projects where people can live across different classes and economic powers, right? Where, let's call it an estate. In that estate, if you can afford 5 randa towards the 30 rand, pay your 5 rand, we'll pay your 25 rand, you live. If you afford 15 rand, pay your 15, we pay you 15. If you afford 20 rand, pay your 20 rand, we pay our 10 rand. That's how it works. And you move away from those areas and we build sustainable housing alternatives elsewhere. But the public is like, this is our home. This is where we live. Where must we go? We don't want to move away. So mind you, what must the city of Cape Town do? Because if you don't want to move and you say, I want to live here because it's closer to work, cognizant of the fact that the city of Cape Town is very small and because of the design of Cape Town itself, it's like a mini island where majority of it is surrounded by water. There's only so much expansion you can do towards the city because the city is already congested. You can only do it further down towards your Woosters and all your other places, which is further from economic opportunities, which is true, right? But that's the only option we have. And in cases where within the inner city, there are opportunities, again, some don't want to pay and people don't want to move because it's cheaper to live there. And it's the saddest thing ever because you would be living in a shack driving a Merc, but you don't want to go pay for sustainable housing because, do you understand it? So what must we do? And then it's still a city of Cape Town and a government problem where, in this case, unfortunately, given the beauty of our constitution, people have rights. You can't dictate to people what to do with their lives. You can give them alternative options for them to choose for themselves. But if they refuse to choose even alternatives that are in their best interests, because we can't now come there with bazookas and spray you away. We're not going to do that. That's not who we are. That is not how we operate. And do you get it? So that's why it's important for us to work together as a nation, where government is really trying, like is the case in the city of Cape Town and in the Western Cape. Meet us halfway. You can't, I tell you, that house is not safe. You are in danger. Don't live there. You're like, I want to. And then when you are in danger, I'm like, but here's an alternative. You still don't want it. What must can happen? So it's incumbent on all of us to play our part in making sure that when we say we want to develop our nation, let's all do it. And when we think about the interests of the nation, let's thoroughly think about what is in our best interests, right? Be very cognizant of the consequences of the decisions that we make.
Yeah. I heard you said something about moving people with bazookas.
We can't do that. Yeah. That's apartheid. Yes.
That's what people are fearing.
But we're not going there.
Yeah.
If we were, we could have done it already. But we're not, because that's not who we are. And it's beautiful that, and this is the sad thing about the history taught at school, right? You learn more about Adolf Hitler than you learn about South Africa's history itself. And even in cases where you do learn about South Africa's history, you only learn about Sobukwe, you learn about Biko, and you learn about Mandela's them. Even they have limited truths about the history there. But people won't tell you stories about people like Helen Suzman and James Self, right? People won't tell you that Helen Suzman was an opposition to the NP, who was the only white woman in that parliament who was fighting against forceful removals for black people. She's a white woman living in white apartheid South Africa, who has all the full benefits of being a white person, has absolutely zero business to be fighting for black people, but she is. She's not affected by being removed. Oh, hey, be my thing in the burbs. But in parliament, she was fighting to say, but this is wrong. But nobody writes about these things because why? It was a white woman. We didn't have allies. And if we did have allies in the struggles, they're not white South African allies. We had allies from Zimbabwe and Mozambique and other places. And people don't say these things. And those are our forefathers. And now, when I look at the stalwarts of my political party, I think of Helen Suzman, a woman who was white, who had every privilege of a white person, who had zero business to be caring about the best interests of black people. But she said no. You have Helen Zille. Controversial as Zille is, right? You had her fighting to get justice for Biko's name. Zero business. She's a white woman who's privileged in apartheid South Africa. She has zero business trying to tell people the truth about Biko's death. People forget about these things, right? You have now the late James Self, who fought really hard to ensure that there is reform within our constitutional judgments to set precedents that would guide not only the order of government business, but constitutional business. People don't talk about that because why? He's white.
So what you're painting here is a very dim picture for for social relations in South Africa in general. How do you, as the DA, of course, it's not incumbent upon you to do it all yourself, but as if you were to go into government, how would you promote social cohesion? Yeah, in the face of that equitable model of political governance that you guys use.
Look, it's simple. It all goes back to the basics of the relationship between an individual and society and government, right? We must go back to our communities, civil society organizations, to even the organization of the school curriculum, and the curriculum and the activities within the school that will help us get to a point where we are not only on the same page as far as our needs, which I think we are. We all know what we all need, right? But we're also on the same page around how to coexist amongst each other peacefully, within the best interest of each other, right? We look at the roles that churches played, for example, during the apartheid era to overthrow the government, versus the role churches play now to foster social cohesion. If anything, some churches now cause more division than they build. Some churches are anti-constitutional, and then we have weird fights versus Christianity versus democracy. But another Jesus and the God that I know is a liberal Democrat who is pro-everyone. But then I go to churches like, no, how dare you say gay people should exist in South Africa? But then, my God is like, which is what the Constitution is about. You see? So these are weird things that we need to still be able to do, but we can. We do have a whole lot of people who have enough voices, will, and love for the country to do it. Many are quiet because of fear, obviously. But as the Democratic Alliance, we plan on doing so in the same way we've managed to do with our work with civil society organizations in the lead up to our elections, to foster change, to create awareness on a whole lot of other things. We'll do that. And in government, in having a proper grip on being guided by the Constitution and not some patronage network that seeks to advance the interests of a few over the others. Yeah.
As we're drawing towards the end here, I mean, I think this is a perfect time now that we've sort of painted the picture of how the DA views society and how to, like, social justice in general, right? I want us to come to a practical thing that's going on in the Free State right now, which is the inhabitants of Lowry Park.
Lowry Park, yeah.
Yeah. What happens? I think that reflects something that happens in South Africa a lot, right? And you've already touched on that quite a bit, I think, with everything you've been saying. I was aware of that, but I just want you to tell me about Lowry Park in particular. What's going on there? How do you guys frame that situation?
Yeah, I may not be the most clued up about Lowry Park person in the province, but based on the bit of understanding that I have is this, right? So the South African law is clear You can't just go and take a dwelling anywhere as you please. There are municipal bylaws that govern occupation of spaces, particularly municipal land. So state land is the responsibility of the state, and therefore, because they are the responsibility of the state, as the custodian, the state has the privilege of disseminating or giving away land that is state owned, right? In this case, we're talking about municipal land dealing, land ya Mangaung. So then you have people who had illegal occupation there. Automatically, that is an infringement of not only the bylaws of the municipality, but an infringement of the constitutional principles of this country. So then you must vacate, right? But the one thing we've always been pro as the Democratic Alliance, because we are a party of the rule of law. We've been pro following the law to the letter, but also being anti-violent in how we approach situations, right? Anti-violent also centered on compassion for situations, right? So it's firstly important to understand where these people come from. How did they get to a point of having to find dwelling there, right? They're conflating communications around where they come from, but the dominant voice there is that it was a political, what do I call it? Supported initiative to have people ending up being there. Politically, to try to not only put the Democratic Alliance in an awkward position because our ward councillor there is a white man. So again, white men having to tell black people move away, weird vibes, right? Politically, and also in the sense that it's the ANC, we're trying to show you that you're not doing well enough with your housing responsibilities within the municipality and the province. So bonisa. And then again, if the ruling party also does come back to try to say, let's sort it out. Yeah, you are anti-poor, you know. So it's being backed into different corners. So our standpoint has always been clear. Anything that is illegal is wrong. Don't do it. But that, as it may be, we wouldn't probably find ourselves in the situation we were had the Mangaung Metro and the Free State Department of Human Settlements been focused enough to know how to use their money. The Mangaung was supposed to be able to disseminate land accordingly to give people rights and give them opportunities to build. And in cases where they do build, give them opportunities to have title deeds, which is the responsibility then of the provincial government, right? But then unfortunately, you find ourselves in the Free State with a human settlements department that last year alone returned 670 million rands worth of money back to National Treasury because they said they don't know what to do with the money. 670 million in one financial year, you return it back to Treasury because, no, guys, we don't know what to do with the money. How do you not know what to do with money when people need places to live? There's so many people who are displaced, who need houses, who can build them RDP houses. There's so many RDP houses that are not complete in this province. There's so many houses that have asbestos that you can fix with that money. Do you understand? You have a massive backlog at RDP. You can push the administration there and make sure that the deeds office and your office work well and and make sure that those title deeds come out. There's so much to do. And so it's a half and half. So it's a political weird chess game, but at the same time, it's a consequence of the negligence and the poor governance of not only the municipality here, Mangaung, Yanglor Park, but also the province, the Free State, because they don't know what they're doing and they don't care. For as long as the tender's not going out to who I wanted to, I won't spend the money. Doesn't matter who gets to bear the brunt of it all. And that's how we found ourselves, Lorbak.
Okay, yeah. To close off, Karabo, I felt like this segment, deserved most of the time until I left it for last.
Mm-hmm.
In the face of everything that's been said, and by everyone, all parties, all stakeholders in the nation's well-being, what does the DA, and the DA being you, of course, what do you have to say that cuts through the noise and is a clear message to the people, like speaking, like Just think of the mic as you're speaking into the ear of a voter, a young voter, an old voter, any voter. And please paint a picture for them of why the DA should be, why I should put the vote in the DA's box, and whatever happens after this election going forward, why I should be with the DA and not the other oppositions. I really want you to contrast between the other political oppositions and the DA. Yeah.
Look, the contrast is simple, and it's not a clean audits contrast. It's the impact on the ground contrast. I'm going to use Midval, which is a small municipality inside of Gauteng, which is currently the best governed municipality in the whole of Gauteng itself. And I'm going to use Machabeng, my home municipality where I come from. Growing up, Velkomo, there was a bit of life there. Liberty Center, a shopping complex where the businesses had an opportunity to grow, to participate in the economy, to employ more people and give people jobs. The town was clean. I could open the window at any time and not worry about what it smells like. I knew that there was a routine, kalabubedi. People are going, the municipality is going to come and pick up the refuse. Potholes were not as bad, and then I didn't even have to leave Velkomo to start experiencing the decay. From kindergarten to high school, there was no road that wasn't filled with sewage everywhere I go. Town does not look like a CBD. You go there, all of us when we grow up, we dream of living in the burbs, right? We want to have a house in the burbs, in Homenade. Houses in the burbs in Velkom are surrounded by sewage in the yard. Green sewage that you see, or this is feces in the burbs in Velkom that I grew up in, right? Swimming pool, it's not cute anymore, it's not safe. And then if you want to go swimming as a child there, you first need to wonder whether you want to go smoke ganja first or what, right? The streets at night I could see. Now I walk around, I have to put my car's lights, I need to put them on bright before I could see where I'm driving, let alone when I'm walking. When I'm driving alone, I need to put them on because I can't see anything else. We had everybody used to laugh and say, Velkomo has one robot or two robots. There's not even one robot now because all the robots are not working in Velkom. Do you understand? The library. I used to go to the library. Now, library is a ganja station right opposite the municipality. Right? The Liberty Center that was cute, that I used to love going and take photos. I even have cute baby photos of myself outside Liberty Center with the green leaves and the water there that I have at home. Now, there's no shop, Kara Liberty Center. And it's everybody tells you if you're going to go inside there because there's so many abandoned shops that are not operating in there. They tell you you must be at risk of either coming out of there robbed, or raped, or not alive. That's the life. Yara Velkomo now. Right? And this is not because there was climate change. No, it's not because there was climate change. But it's simply because across the years, people run Velkomo down. Velkomo, everybody back in the days, our parents would tell you Velkomo was like the mini Joburg of the Free State, right? You had Bloemfontein, the city of roses. You see zero rose on any road here. And then there was Velkom, which was like a Pretoria and Joburg kind of vibes of the Free State. Now, there are no mines. They're not working well. The state of the economy is bad. Life is depressing there. There's no life at all. People even ask you, where the hell is Velkom? Because nobody knows what's going on there. People who lived good lives, flourishing lives, are now living in depression because there's nothing left for their kids. And those are the things that make me think, Mara, if you have a smaller municipality that is drier than what Velkomo was, Midval, where kids there have swimming pools. The Masipala there even has mobile libraries. Imagine, our libraries at Ganja Station, there they have mobile libraries. Homonati, who beautiful, you know. They have cute bursaries that work for kids there. It's green. It's you know. Why can't I get the same? And that's why I don't want to vote for the ANC. I can't, because they've had 30 years, longer than my existence. This is worth of getting things right on behalf of South Africans who trusted them, not only with their emancipation, but trusting them with the dignity of all the people who died for our democracy, and they still didn't care and they drove us down here. So you look at the Democratic Alliance anywhere you go, there's a difference in terms of service delivery outcomes, water supply, infrastructure development, budgets and its expenditure with outcomes of where it's going, where you have, in the Free State, you have schools that are being closed down, right? Some are vandalized that are still operational. And then it takes forever for people to build schools. In the Western Cape, a school was built in 61 days. A full school, 61 days. Well, we're still waiting for all of other things elsewhere. Do you get it? So that's what makes me, when I think of the DA, I want a political party that not only brags to say, yeah, we delivered you from the struggles and then, but you owe us the rest of your misery. I want a political party that it gets money and it's like, okay, what can we do better? Okay, let us give you a school. Let us give you a working road. Let us give you Surishi network. Let's give you water. Let us give you quality education. Let us give you jobs. In the Free State, last year alone, 70,000 more people lost their jobs, while 300 people gained jobs in the Western Cape. 1 year, same comparison. 70 lost jobs here, 300 new jobs where? Western Cape. And that's what makes me want to vote for the Democratic Alliance, and that's why I'm voting for the DA. Because everybody deserves to live under a government that cares and a government that can.
Wow. Thank you very much for joining us today, Karabo. You've given us a lot to think about here at the Social Justice Lab, and everyone that decides to come into the lab and experiment with us, I'm sure will gain some value and will, whatever happens, will definitely leave this episode a more well-informed voter.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, really. I had fun. And then thank you to everyone who's watching.
Okay. That's it from us here at the Social Justice Lab. In the beginning, we said good morning, and that's not by mistake.
Yeah.
Because this is the time to wake up, Mzansi. Wake up on the 29th and go vote, and wake up every day after that to promote social justice. Because it may seem like we discussed a lot of things here today, and it may seem like we're advocating for a lot of things, but we assure you, it's just society.